Good evening, dear viewers. Welcome to this week's Open Mic. My guest for this evening is Mr. Mohamed Hassan. He is a member of the Labour Party of Belgium, but originally comes from Ethiopia. Recently, he and other members of the investigation team produced a documentary on Eritrea called Come and See Eritrea, and our interview is going to be in two parts and all about that. Welcome to our program again, Mr. Mohamed. And I just want to ask you how you came about with the idea about the program and what the documentary is all about.
Well, we have visited Eritrea 3 years ago. The idea we had is that it is to see on the ground what is happening in Eritrea. We have met also the authorities and His Excellency the President. We made a very extensive interview, and also with the different ministers who are responsible for health, agriculture, and the Women Association and the Minister of Health. Our objective is that it is to tell the story of Eritrea outside, what they are doing here, what is their achievement, and to compare it with the other countries in the continent on the basis of the 2000 General Assembly in United Nations have declared that it is in 2015 there will be a millennium goal on the basis of 8 subjects, and from that point of view we had assessed Eritrea and we followed, and we made a documentary film to tell the story of Eritrea for the international community, particularly for Africans and Latin Americans, and also progressive Europeans, and for everybody who is interested in Eritrea, in order to project the reality of the country and to create a solidarity movement with Eritrea. We assume that Eritrea was not treated properly in the international media. There is a blockage and there is misinformation about Eritrea, and we wanted to bring the objective of Eritrea and its vision of its leadership and its people in the development of their country, and that was the purpose. The first time when I came here, I have visited this country and I did also an interview with you. There was a very big reaction, and after that we published also 3 long articles on Eritrea, which we got a lot of response. The title of the article was Everything You Are Not Supposed to Know About Eritrea, in 3 parts. And it has been translated in a lot of language and published overall in the world. And we got a lot of response that it is people thanking us, the different social medias, intelligentsia, progressive parties, and so on, because of the lack of information they are having on Eritrea. Then we envisaged that to develop a documentary film in Eritrea in order to show that it is the view of Eritrea on the ground. And that is the purpose. It is about 52 minutes of the film. The film is based on several topics, about 4 topics. The objective of the film is that to convey the story of Eritrea to anybody who have a rational reasoning, and progressive people and democratic people, students, university students, secondary students, trade unions, different political parties who are informed or disinformed about Eritrea. And what we did is the film, before the film we did also a very small book which is, will be published. It is published with the film, an introduction on the history of Eritrea, the colonization, then after that it is British occupation of Eritrea, and after that how it is the US interest have imposed its will on the Eritrean people and denying the Eritrean people the right of self-determination, and imposing on the Eritrean people a so-called federation between my country, Ethiopia, and Eritrea. And these have caused the Eritrean people a very long journey after the annexation in 1962, and after a very long journey they have gotten independence through a referendum in 1993. For me and for my comrades, that Eritrea is a very young country. It's only, we assume that when we calculate the age of Eritrea, it is only 5 years old. From 1993 until 1998, Eritrea was doing the infrastructure because it had been destroyed in the time of the struggle through the occupation and the war. And once the infrastructure was developing and the Eritrean economy was getting to start, then again the same enemy which have envisaged and who have never accepted Eritrean independence, despite Eritrea being a sovereign independent state, member of the African Union and all international organizations, again with a proxy war in the name of a pretext of border war, again a war was waged against Eritrea. Despite of all odds, they have defeated this invasion, and then after that there was a very big campaign, rumors against Eritrea, which is not attached to the reality of Eritrea. It is in fact that they have used the technique of dehumanizing this country. And as you know, as you are also a journalist, and myself also a journalist and writer, that the enemy of Eritrea have developed 5 propaganda systems. One is that dehumanizing the leadership. That is one of their character, which is they are using it every time. Second, once you dehumanize the leadership, you hide the history, because it is the people cannot know about the history of this country and the struggle they did and all up and down what they did for their struggle and their independence, hide history. Thirdly is that it is blaming the victim, that Eritrea is a victim, and blaming the victim as if it is Eritrea is an aggressor country which is troubling the Horn of Africa and so on, which is not true. On the contrary, that Eritrea was subjected to a lot of pressure, whether it is through war or through other means, and blaming the victim. And the fourth is that it is the one who is blaming the victim is also trying to show itself as a victim. It is that they are a victim, and the government of Eritrea, it is an aggressive government. It is waging contradictions in its own country and abroad, in order to prepare the masses in the European countries and in their own countries, particularly in the United States, to wage, probably in their maximum objective is that even to wage a war against Eritrea. The fifth character is that it is to show themselves that they are the one who are defending democracy and human rights, while they are the one who are destroying democracy and human rights everywhere and waging war and destroying nations. So with using these 5 characters, we decided and we said we have to visit Eritrea, we have to meet the leadership of Eritrea, we have to speak with the people of Eritrea, and we have to see what they are doing. And as a result of that, this film came out. We have the film is about 52 minutes, and after that there is also an introduction, a small book, and then also the view of the leadership. The leadership, the country have a leadership and it have a view. And who is this leadership? How they look alike? What they are saying? What is their story? So we have also put in the whole interview of the president in another CD, and also several officials and some young Eritreans, engineers who are studying in the university here, in different universities, and particularly in the agricultural faculty and so on. We made an interview with them, and we wanted to show that the viewer itself have to judge instead of being inculcated with a false propaganda. And the other major important is that, as you know, that it's majority of the population in Europe and Belgium in particularly, but also in Europe, most of them, they are now who are in the leadership or are growing, the rising stars. They are their age between 40 and 42 years old, who have no knowledge about Eritrea, who didn't follow the struggle. They were young at that moment, and their information was very limited. So our purpose is that to campaign and to say, give a chance to Eritrea. Let us listen to the Eritrean people and the leadership, and to build a solidarity, a fraternal relationship between the people and the government of Eritrea. And we wish them also the best. And despite of all these difficulties, Eritrea is the only country who have achieved the Millennium Goal. The Millennium Goal, it is not the objective that Eritrea have put in it, but it is the imperialist countries who have came in 2000 in the General Assembly, and they have boasted that we will eradicate poverty, we will eradicate this with the 8 points, which is in the film. And when we checked that it is, despite now they are in a serious general crisis, economic and political crisis in these countries, Eritrea, her view, even in the time of struggle, is based on self-reliance, and it's also the view is that it is to mobilize the population and to bring a humanistic economy, in a sense, when I say humanistic economy, in a sense, which centers the population. The majority of the population of Eritrea, they are peasantry and they live in the rural area. The country have been destroyed, even though this country in the time of colonialism, under the Italian occupation, Eritrea was the only country which was producing a lot of agricultural product and exporting to the Middle East. Despite of all that infrastructure which have been destroyed, and some of it is looted by the British occupation and sold it outside, now Eritrea, with her view that it is based on self-reliance and putting in the center the citizen, and particularly in the rural areas, and with the 8 points successfully they have achieved, and we salute them, and we are in solidarity with the government of Eritrea and the people. And our view is that it is every house, and we will knock every door to show the reality on Eritrea, whether it is the group of students, whether it is students from the secondary school, universities, different technical schools in Belgium and in different countries. The film is in several languages. It is in French, Spanish, and English. And also we are envisaging to produce it also in German and Swedish. And in the long run also we would like also to translate it and subtitle it in Somali language to show that it is the vision of Eritrea. It is not based on aggression, it is based on peaceful coexistence with its neighbors, and I see Eritrea is a united front within the population, and I see it as an Ethiopian that Eritrea is a frontline state. Like in the 1980s, there was a frontline state against apartheid, and when I compare my country, Ethiopia, and what achieved Eritrea, it is uncomparable. For anybody who wants to see the film, it is welcomed. Our purpose is that to bring an objective information to defeat the 5 characteristics of the imperialists, using dehumanizing the leadership, hiding history, blaming the victim, and trying to make themselves victim and intervene in the internal affair of the Eritrean people. And to do that, they are campaigning in our countries. Our taxpayer money should not be allocated to aggression. We reject that, and it is the public and the young people in Belgium and in Europe, they must know. As you know that in Europe now there is a very serious economic crisis. A lot of young people have no, particularly the victim of this economic crisis are the youth. More than 20, in Spain more than 30 to 40% of the youth have no jobs, and they have to work 3-4 jobs in order to survive. Despite of the wealth concentrated in that part of the world, that it is the people are becoming aware and they want to listen our view, and the view of Eritrea must be brought to this public, and we wanted to create the maximum and solidarity with the Eritrean people and Eritrean government. That is the objective of the film. Also the articles we have published, that everything you are not supposed to know about Eritrea, it have been read and translated in a lot of languages, and we received more than 25,000 emails. The people are thanking us, saying that we didn't know about it. Top American website like Counterpunch and so on, they have published it, and they have sent us an email saying that please inform us more about this country. We have misinformed. The information we are getting, it is very thin. When we made an autopsy about the information about this country, the result it's like this. It's not a virus, and it's not a bacteria also. We came to the conclusion that the propaganda against this country, it is an amoeba. It breaks into pieces. You know, amoeba breaks itself and so on. It is based on rumor. There is no issues was discussed. What Eritrea is doing is not discussed. Is Eritrea as health program, is it in comparison with other African countries, have been analyzed? No, at all. Eritrea's concept of food security, or which I consider it that it is the most important in the nation building, And nation building is a very long process. And you cannot build if you don't bring an egalitarian vision and build the agricultural system in order to feed the population. I call the food security, I call it food sovereignty. When you compare, let's compare now what Eritrea does in the food security or in the food sovereignty. I consider a nation which is trying to build first to feed its own population through its own agriculture and through its human resources and capital, and at the same time introducing a modern technology in agriculture, which is later on, when agriculture more develops, that other industries, agriculture will be professional, and then it will even be split. Small industries can develop, and Eritrea can also export and engage itself into trade on equal footing with other nations in a free basis and on an equality basis. The assumption, how do you do that? If you don't build the food security and food self-determination, then you will be dependent. As my country, Ethiopia, with a lot of it had human resources, it have a lot of water, it have a lot of fertile agricultural soil, but they have taken another line in comparison with Eritrea. When we compare now Eritrea in a food security or in food sovereignty, I consider, when you take the People's Republic of China, it had only 7% of agricultural suitable land. And it feeds 1,300,000,000 population. When you are sovereign, when you can feed your own population without begging and asking handout from outside, your sovereignty and nation building process will be strengthened. Today, there is about 40,000 rich and highly technological agricultural firms who produce more than 1,000 times in comparison with the 6 billion population in the world. The world today is still dominated by peasants. 50% or more than 50% of the population of the world are peasantry. These 40,000 big agricultural firms, they assume, they say the 3 billion and a half peasantry, what it produces, it is a peanut. We produce 1,000 times to feed the population of the world. Therefore, this peasantry is lazy. We can produce, we can open the market everywhere, and we can sell. Eritrea says no. We don't want to be dependent on the multinational grain producing and agricultural producing multinationals. We wanted to build our agricultural system based on our self-reliance. And this is considered as a declaration of war from the point of view of the hegemonist agricultural multinational organization. That's why Eritrea is targeted. Eritrea was seen also, it's as a bad example. If Eritrea succeeded in this process, then other African countries, they might imitate, who are even richer than Eritrea in their fertile land, and they are bigger countries and so on. They might copy the vision of Eritrea. This is the objective which they have never spoke when we say they hide history. The other major important is that nation building is a very difficult issue. Eritrea, yes, it is a sovereign, independent. It has nine languages and 2 religions. In order to build a nation, that the youth must know each other, that there must be a possibilities to know each other. And one of the major objectives to create a communication between the youth and create out of them a nation building and consciousness of a nation, you need an education. Despite of all the difficulties, Eritrea, after independence, from 1993, as the president said, they have achieved by opening schools in the villages, even in the remote areas where they didn't have even an access, health, portable water, and so on and so on. Once you do that, then it is the second step, the agriculture and the health and the human resources and the knowledge you build in the country it is in the right track, and it will go to the second phase of the revolution. And this was not appreciated. Eritrea is not independent 50 years as other African countries, but I consider Eritrea is 5 years old because it was not given a chance to continue because of the wage war against Eritrea. Despite of all this odds, Eritrea have proved that it is with their policy to achieve which others didn't achieve in this continent. I compare as an Ethiopian, my country Ethiopia, which is about 80 million. In Ethiopia, they sell children. they sell our daughters, they sell land, and they sell the best land. Ethiopia was boasting at one time, wants to be the third biggest rice producing country in the world after the People's Republic of China and India. How they are envisaging to build it then? They sold the land of Ethiopians, the most fertile one, particularly in the Gambela region. They have chased away the population, and they sold it for 1 hectare in $1 for 99 years leasing. And the assumption is that the foreign capital will come, will chase away the indigenous people, make them slaves in their own country, and produce this product and sell it not to feed the population, but to export and bring some money for the ruling group there. Ethiopia is the second biggest flour producing country. It earns every year $550 million from flour. If you know, the flour business is a very fragile and a very difficult business. They were given the most fertile land in the Oromo area, near to the lake, and for 1 hectare of flour, you need 10,000 liters of water. They are pumping the water from the lake that normally, if even you use your water management system should have been balanced. It destroyed the ecological system. It takes more water from the lake, what the lake is receiving, and now lakes are drying. The people who are working there, they are by using a lot of chemicals on the flowers. Those who are working Ethiopians, who are earning less than €1 in a day, they are having now skin disease, particularly skin cancer, and they are dying. Not only that, the fertilizers they are using and the chemicals they are pumping on these flower farms, that the water, and they pump the water on it, the water goes in deep contaminated, and it goes to the river and to the lake. And the local peasants, they have no accessibility for potable water. They drink from this water, and now a lot of them are dying from liver cancer. So when we compare which line Eritrea have taken and the vision of Eritrea in comparison with the view Ethiopia have taken and other countries in Africa have taken, it is totally a disaster. It is not people's center, and Eritrea is people's center. First, it protects the ecology. Second, it protects its population from all these kind of diseases which is these multinationals are bringing and grabbing. And the moment that it doesn't succeed, and when their profit gets down, they will just dump it and leave, and they let the Ethiopians in a bad shamble. Eritrea's vision is as a balanced way. Balanced in a sense that it is in a long process, that must be a national economic integration of all the regions. At the same time, the majority of the population of Eritreans, they don't live in the cities, but they live in the rural areas, and these are the majority of the citizens, and they must have an access of all what every citizen in the world gets. They must have an access for health, they must have an access for agricultural project, they must have an access for water, and so on, and education for their children, and this. In this pillar, when we calculated, other important thing which Eritrea have achieved is eliminating contaminated disease by introducing portable waters, because 70% of the diseases in the most developing countries, it comes from bad water and bad drinking. By doing that, they have eliminated a big part of it. Malaria control, they are almost now 95% of malaria have been eradicated, and it is hoped that it is very soon will be 100%. Kids have been, all children in Eritrea have been immunized from most of the diseases, which is supposed through immunization process which the Ministry of Health is doing with the different their partners, that kids have been immunized from polio and so on. And you see now in Nigeria, like polio and other diseases which is supposed to disappear now coming back, because of there is no central vision, there is no vision for a nation building, and so on. And from that perspective, we want the vision of Eritrea to be seen, and to be seen rationally rationally and judge Eritrea from an irrational point of view, and to compare it from other countries which had been much bigger, big human resources, independent for the last 50 years, and you compare Nigeria, which despite of it is all wells, very few people are enjoying an extremely luxurious life. The class condition in the country, the leadership of this country is living the normal life of the population, and it is not aggrandizing for its self-interest, whatever it is. And from that perspective, we progressive and democratic forces in Europe and also in the Horn of Africa, we salute and we promote the Eritrean case to be seen objectively, without any chauvinism or any a priori that it is a negative propaganda which have been put in this country, to be seen very objectively. The other important point I wanted to focus is that when agriculture, it is everywhere is the main theme. If you don't, when we compare now Eritrea with Egypt of 1970, Egypt in 1970 was feeding, it was producing 85% of its local food. Today, Egypt is 100% dependent with an external assistant or external grain. They buy grain in international market. When you compare Eritrea, which is a young nation, at least gradually, it is with her food security, with building the dams, with the use the dam properly, and so on. It's not only food in a cereal sense of it, also vegetables, other component of foods are growing there. And the indication shows that it is the right road or the right policy that makes this country independent, and it deals with everybody without infringing in her sovereignty. In the future, the concept is that it is to have an industrialized agriculture which gradually replaces the number of the peasantry, that the peasantry will have access to education and so on, that gradually cottage industry and small industries in agriculture can develop. Agriculture is very, very variety. When we take Denmark, 4 million population, it is an agricultural society, at the same time also an industrial society. If Denmark can produce and feed, the capacity of Denmark in agriculture can feed the whole continent of Africa. Eritrea have more land, and it can use that, it can, with the vision they have and concentrating on agriculture, they can achieve a lot of goal. And the objective of the government to show the mobilization of the population, why this vision came. The experiment that Eritrea is doing is totally different from what the other African countries have done. And I have told you that Egypt at one time was almost self-sufficient in 1970, and now it is totally dependent. And that's why you see there and there food riots, the increase, the price, the international market, that the price of grains are increasing. If you take now in the United States corn, in Brazil also sugar cane and sugar and so on, all these now are used now for bio-oil in order, with their assumption that to replace the petrol dependency, in order to create an oil from that for their industries and for their cars. And this have brought a very big crisis in the international market of grains. And this have raised the price of grain and brought a lot of crisis for a lot of dependent countries who are buying from the international market. And the food prices has increased, bread price increased, and this is what we have seen, the riot in Tunisia. The riot in Egypt, it started from the bread issue and so on. And Eritrea, its policy of self-sufficiency in food, and even exceeding from that it is in the future that Eritrea also can export and trade with other countries on the basis of its agriculture and gradually developing agricultural industry. We find it is a correct policy, and it should be encouraged, and it is made by their own. It is not supported by the IMF and the World Bank. It's a project of their own, based on their own resources and human mobilization and human resources. This is one of the targets that the enemy of Eritrea never liked it. It's not because of democracy. It's not because of the multi-party, what they are talking about. It is the independence of Eritrea. When you are independent to feed your own population. Another example I would like to mention is that when you compare Ethiopia with Ukraine, Ukraine had a very big, huge agricultural land. What we see now in Ukraine is that another apart from the crisis we see in the news, it is also a land grabbing. That it is Great Britain had bought in Ukraine 100,000 hectares of land. Also other countries, that they can export food from Ukraine to the international market. While the Ukrainian population are in a very miserable situation, now we have seen that there is even a division and then a crisis in Ukraine and intervening from outside. If a nation is not independent for itself, to feed on itself, it is not a nation, it will be a false flag, and it will be a neo-colonial state. And I think the correct line that Eritrea have put in as a policy, we consider it is a correct one and should be copied by other African countries. Me as an Ethiopian and somebody from the Horn of Africa, I really salute Eritrea, and we should defend Eritrea and bring the Eritrean vision to international community.
That concludes the first part of our interview with Mr. Mohammed Hassan. We will meet next week, same time, same place, on the same subject. But it's good night from us for now.